morning. I'm Representative Elizabeth Wade. I come from House District 31. It's in West Valley City. I'm so grateful that all of you are joining us here today to learn about a new law and the situation it addresses, the continuing situation that while we're hearing about the first days of school, it impacts a sizable number of our young people, those experiencing homelessness, where they are homeless, headed for school, and it's a completely different experience from coming from home to school. Early this summer, Governor Herbert signed House Bill 371. The title of the bill is Consent to Services for Homeless Youth. It answers an appeal emphasized by homeless teenagers that even when they are on their own, as independent and self-sufficient as they have to be, they were not able to access shelter and services because of their age. Now they can. This law creates a new connection for homeless 15, 16, and 17-year-old youth among licensed facilities, other shelter options, service providers, and Utah System for Family Services. It provides an additional level of access to shelter and identification documents necessary for everyone in homelessness, but particularly for our vulnerable youth experiencing homelessness on their own, so that they can get the care that they need. Maybe what has become more significant in this whole bill passage is the dialogue that has now grown and the awareness that is growing. Young people who experience homelessness tell us about the dangers and the needs, the details about being hungry, being sick, encountering people they know will hurt them, and how they want to be in school. And then they immediately list the barriers and frustrations of being underage. The consent to services in House Bill 371 gives those young teenagers more access, but the dialogue has ballooned around the needs and necessity for every single one of our homeless teens to have a safe place to sleep, to have nourishing meals, to have adults they can trust and rely on, to have enough stability in their lives to allow them to focus on school and be kids. While they watch peers at crosswalks chatting with friends on their way to classrooms about the Friday night ball game or the science quiz, our homeless teens have to carve out a place in their complicated lives just to get ready for a day in school, or maybe have a place to study. Especially as this hot weather, think about this hot weather, they still need showers. They want to go to school feeling like they can fit in with the rest of the kids. As this weather changes to cold weather, it's going to bring a whole other set of danger, illness and predation, search and vulnerability, not orientation to school and learning and hope. The crosswalks for these kids are numerous and complex, and still without many crossguards. More access to shelter and services with House Bill 371 was a step, but we must notice and keep sight of these kids, keep them in conversations about what they need and what they deserve, and what Utah is with them when they are safe, educated, and have a sense of paths to their own secure futures. Thank you. So I'm going to turn the time over to others who are here today to tell you more. They are actually the ones, they'll introduce themselves, but they're actually the people who have worked with kids in homelessness for years and years and brought me into the conversation. They are knowledgeable and dedicated, and they help us understand the experience of being a teen without a home and what difference it makes when Utah policy provides them with access to tools and shelter and services. So thank you again. I don't know who's coming. They're going to each introduce themselves. Whoever can go first. We didn't organize this.
All right.
My name is
Erin Preston. I'd like to thank Representative Wade for the great work on this bill. I'm an education attorney and a former education administrator, school administrator. In my daily job, working with schools and students, we encounter homeless youth on a very regular basis. Everything from students who have been abandoned to students who have been abandoned in some way to those who are couch surfing of their own accord. We try through the education system to provide some sort of support, but that is often lacking, and students are often reliant on handouts from teachers and others to provide support. I'd also like to tell you my personal story on this. About 5 years ago, as an administrator of a school, I became aware of a student in the school who had a severe history of abuse and neglect in her background. After she had left the school, I invited her back to my home to babysit my kids for a while as I was working over the summer. Her parents failed to pick her up, and I called DCFS and asked what I should do. Parents agreed to allow her to stay, her mother agreed to allow her to stay with me, and she ended up with me all summer, with us not quite knowing where her family was at the time. That led to another 1.5 years of her staying with me and our family, including my sons, who came to call her a sister, and she called them her brothers. During that time, she was a 4.0 student. She was captain of the basketball team, and she turned out to be homecoming queen. She was incredibly successful. She was incredibly happy. About 1.5 years after that, at the age of 15, her mother decided she wanted to have her back for various reasons. This girl, whose name I won't use, refused to go. There had been too much abuse, too much neglect. She had gone through too much. She didn't want to go back to that. She refused to go. The night the mother came to pick her up, she refused to go. We called DCFS. We called the police. The police accused us of kidnapping her based on the fact that the mother should have custodial rights. The girl continued to make lucid arguments that she should not have to go, and explained to the DCFS officer there what she had gone through and why she couldn't go back to that. Hours and hours and hours of back and forth went on that night until finally the DCFS officer and the police gave her a choice of, would you rather go to jail or would you rather go to your mother? And those are the only two choices. She begged and begged to stay with us. They declined to give her that option. In the end, she said, I'd rather go to jail. So there, in front of my young children, they handcuffed her and put her in the back of a police vehicle and took her to jail. The DCFS officers and the police there didn't know any other options. They knew the history of abuse. They knew what had been going on, but her only option was to go to jail or to go with her mother. In the end, she was ultimately returned to her mother, and since then has failed to graduate high school, has a significant criminal record, and has failed to live up to the potential and the happy life that we saw as so hopeful for her. I would hope that children like this are given different options now, and I hope that there is enough publicity of these options with DCFS, with the police, and with the schools that they know that these are alternatives to sending kids to jail or other consequences. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Justine Murray. I'm with Youth Future Shelter Home. We have a shelter in Ogden and St. George, and we're here to just ensure that our youth are safe in our communities. We want to make sure that they have access to the resources that they need and they can get safe and stable housing. With this bill, we want to ensure that our youth, wherever they access, are being referred to the appropriate services, such as residential support or youth services in their community. We want to make sure that our youth are not being mixed with adult populations in order to keep them safe because of how vulnerable they are. So Youth Futures provides overnight shelter for 12 to 18-year-olds in Ogden and St. George, and we're here to support our youth in any capacity that we can. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share what we do, and this opportunity to let our youth know that they have a safe place to go and that we're there for them. Thank you.
Senator Jake Andre, co-chair of the Affordable Housing Commission. I applaud this bill and the efforts of Representative Waite and many of our NGOs and associations out there that are working really hard to address this issue. The reality is that this is an easy fix, and we were creating our own problems with this, so this bill, I think, helps open up those doors. However, we still have a long way to go with properly aligning the resources that are available in the state with those that are in need of those resources, as well as assessing the needs of those individuals that are coming in. We've been working on the Affordable Housing Commission to not only look at individuals that are in poverty between 30% AMI up to about 65% AMI, but also those below 30% AMI who are oftentimes one paycheck or one event away from homelessness. So as we continue to try to help with the housing issues, and youth homelessness is a major aspect of that, this year we are working as a commission to try to address transitional housing, permanent assisted housing, and to better align those resources with those needs. This is probably most likely going to be an ongoing effort. I don't know that we are ever going to see an end date and say we've ended homelessness, but until that time, I think that we can do a better job at collecting the proper data and to make sure that we are using kind of more of a comprehensive statewide services analysis. So as such, working with Representative Waite and others, Representative Brian King here in the back, we're working on a new homeless shelter data transparency and correlation bill this year, which will include youth homelessness to help us better align those resources and make sure that we can properly assess as someone enters into a situation of homelessness, as they move through that we can get them the help they need and help them get back into more stable situations. So I applaud Representative Waite and everything that she has done with this bill. Like I said, this was an easy fix. I think it received unanimous support from both the House and the Senate across party lines, because it's kind of like a duh, we should have had this a long time ago. So to that end, the Affordable Housing Commission and our continued efforts with homelessness, I think that we can really take some big strides this year. And I'll just put a message out there to all of the NGOs. We got to get out of each other's way, because I think oftentimes we're competing for the same federal dollars, and as such, we're more interested in those monies and providing our services and keeping our ships afloat than we are in helping those individuals transition out. I know that's not something we want to hear, but that's something I think we are seeing, and as such, we've got to overcome that. So I think that's going to be one of the major focuses of our efforts this year, is to help us better align that. Yes, Ben?
You had sought some funding for affordable housing in this past legislative session. Are you going to make another run at it again this year?
Absolutely. And we are going to get money this year. That being said, I think, and I'll take the responsibility, solely I'll take the responsibility. I didn't do a good enough job helping House and Senate leadership last year understand what we were getting for the $24 million request, how it was going to impact and be implemented throughout our communities, and how many people that was actually going to help. So we've learned from those errors of the past, and I believe this year we have a great opportunity to get full support from House and Senate leadership, because I think we're going to be able to come to them with a detailed plan of, this is how much we need to spend here, this is how much we need to spend here, this is how much we need to spend here, and these are the number of individuals that we're going to help in this first round. Any other questions? Thank you. Well then, Representative Waite.
Good morning. My name is Matt Minkovich, and I have the privilege of serving with the dedicated team at the Road Home. Part of our charge is to provide emergency shelter and housing services to families with children. Here's something we know. Everyone in this room knows. We have remarkable young people in our community. Absolutely remarkable. And some of our remarkable young people are facing daunting challenges. They're facing the barriers that homelessness presents. They're facing decisions that a young person shouldn't have to make, but because of circumstances, they need to. We also know that young people who experience homelessness as a family are more likely to become homeless youth or homeless adults than are those young people who are in stably housed families. And that's something that we have an opportunity to turn around. This is something when it comes to young people in need of community support, it has to happen at every level. And so we're very grateful to Representative Wade and to the members of the legislature who are supporting this effort to remove barriers and to provide greater access for young people experiencing difficulty to obtain resources and the support that they need in order to grow and to thrive. This kind of support also happens at an individual level, and you've already heard from Erin and the experience that she had and the experience that the young person that for whom she was providing support faced. And that's simply something we can avoid and must avoid, and that should not happen. So with that, our agency recognizes the invaluable role that those agencies like Volunteers of America, Youth Services, our friends in Ogden, provide to young people experiencing homelessness. And we work in a supportive manner, in a collaborative manner, to support each of those dedicated partners that are taking the lead on this important issue. And I just want to encourage any young person out there who's facing daunting challenges. It's hard enough to go through teen years. I doubt anyone here would want to relive those, as fun as they may have been in certain ways. I think that that's something that it's quite challenging to have these additional burdens added to an individual, to a young human being, is something that requires our thought, the investment of our support, our collective compassion, and in doing so, I think that we'll arrive at the kind of common sense solutions that the legislature has demonstrated in this bill. So, thank you.
Matt, quick question. Are you aware of any of your partners who have actually utilized this bill and taken in youth under what it provides?
I would not have a specific case to which I could refer on that, but I know that our friends that work directly with homeless youth would be more versed to respond to those. We do know of individuals who would have benefited from this prior to its execution. So.
Well, I wanted to address that question because one of the reasons that we wanted to provide an outlet of information like this one is that I still talk to people all the time who have been harboring kids to keep them safe and been in trouble with the law because they've done that, or don't know about this law now that's just recently passed, May 14th. So now there is that access, but the other part of the bill is that it waives the fee for 15, 16, 17-year-olds to get a birth certificate so that they can get access to medical services and other services in education. They can basically open doors for themselves that they learn about when their parents aren't even in the picture. So to spread the word about consent for youth services is actually part of the main point of this event because people haven't realized that these teens need access and now can get it on their own. Are there others who want? I think there were a couple more who wanted. Yeah, good. And then when we're finished with individual speakers, if we can all come up, just so there will be that picture, but also opportunity to ask questions of any one of us. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Cindy LaCour. I'm with Volunteers of America. I'm the Division Director of Youth Homeless Services. with Volunteers of America, and I'm honored to be here as a service provider that's been in the community for many years, but I've been personally working in for over a decade now, and I've seen over and over again the amount of youth that we've had to turn away because we weren't able to get permission to serve has just been really damaging to kind of their path and their progress. And so with the support of Representative Waite and this bill, we've been able to come a little bit closer to reaching our goal of making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring through addressing it younger when the youth are coming to us and wanting to get out of the situation that they're in, and decreasing the cyclicality that homelessness often has. So we've had several successes. A lot of our efforts have been on diverting and looking at reconnecting the youth to families. So we have had 17 youth that have come in that we've been able to connect with family, like better family members or different services that really have supported their own efforts towards self-sufficiency and reducing their experience of homelessness. So thank you so much for being such a great community, and this is a wonderful bill that will be very impactful in continuing to support homeless youth in their journey to self-sufficiency.
Well, my name is Minna Copeland, and I'm here representing Salt Lake County Division of Youth Services. And as we were sitting here, we provide services for our youth in the communities ages 18 up to 22 years old. And I was thinking of this, Representative Waite, last week. I took one of our young adults who graduated high school and was experiencing homelessness, came out of her car and moved into one of our programs, the Milestone program, and she needed her birth certificate. And just the other day, this bill, we walked in and she walked out with her birth certificate, which gave her the opportunity to go and get her social security card. And she was able to move now from one employer that was not in the best of circumstances to yesterday she went in and applied for a job at a telecommunications company, and she starts at Salt Lake Community College on Wednesday. So these bills are impacting these youth, and with every tragic story that we hear of our young people, there are so many of them that are going against the odds. And a bill like this is really opening the doors to providing those, so as we can provide the services, these youth can come in and we're giving them baseline food, clothing, shelter. We're also opening the door that they can finish high school. I had 3 young adults last year that went through high school in our program. And those type of opportunities, I'm just excited to see what's gonna happen this next year as we have these young people that can come in, request services, and we can provide them. So I think as partners in the community and looking out, we appreciate this and we appreciate the opportunity to work with them. So thank you so much.
So are there any further comments or questions?
Yes, just one other thing, maybe be a little more specific. If this is about building awareness for this, could you name some organizations that teens should turn to take advantage of this bill?
Probably the main ones are the licensed facilities, so the VOA, Youth Futures, youth services in the county, just because they're the most aware of the services that are available and the places that can safely shelter youth. One of the considerations with this is that we do want that to make sure youth are safe when they're seeking shelter, because this bill allows them to be sheltered in some new ways than they used to be. But we don't want to open the door to more predation of those kids. The kids have told us that it just means so much to have a safe place to sleep at night. So the emphasis is on safe place to sleep, but the real emphasis is also on safe place to sleep, because they're not going to be helped if they're just sleeping someplace. But when I was teaching, I know that there were kids coming into my classroom every single day that had just crawled out of a corner or from under a car. So what kids do in the winter when it's cold, they sleep under cars that they observe coming into parking lots because it's a warm place. The car's just been turned off and that's where they can get to sleep at night. So then they have to find their way to school the next day under whatever conditions. And those are not, we don't see those in school all the time, because then the kids get up and they don't know whether to go to school and be observed in those conditions among their peers, because then there's a whole stigma of what they're wearing, how clean they are, whether they feel like they're presentable among their peers at school. VOA, the Homeless Youth Resource Center, is the one that many students and youth are spreading the word among themselves about. So I think that's how people are finding out. But now more and more adults are becoming aware of the kids and their needs and where they can go. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again for everyone being here and all of your contributions and for creating a better conversation between policymakers. I think Senator Anderegg mentioned this, but this bill went through committee hearing and floor votes in both chambers, and unanimous votes all the way down. So it was something that every single legislator who encountered the bill saw as a need and as a place to go, a step to take to serve these homeless youth. So thank you again. Have a great day. That'd be great. Up here in the light.